Guru Nation, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Really means a lot to me. This is a topic that actually a couple of people brought up to me. It's stress as it pertains to being an employee versus stress as it pertains to being a business owner, working for yourself, maybe a site owner, maybe a contractor. The stress stays the same more or less, but you do have more options as a business owner, which I'll get into towards the end of this video. But let me just explain, maybe I don't need to explain, the stress as an employee in clinical research, depending on the organization you are with, can be pretty extreme. I mean, you're basically at the mercy of your life being dictated by someone else. This is why it's super important who you choose to be your employer, because that matters, and that does take an effect. I know so many people that have been mentally and physically burnt out by the employers that they work for, and they don't realize, I know it's a tough job market right now, but they don't realize for some reason that they can just move on to someone else. And no amount of mental turmoil or anxiety is worth it. Let me just tell you that. Being on both sides, all right? I have very briefly worked for other people during my career, these past 20 years. I had a 3-year stint as a contractor with various smaller CROs where I did some monitoring. And that was basically independent contractor. I had full control over my schedule. So it's not really like a W-2 or a salaried employee where I'm basically being told what to do. But I've had various business partners in the past, and I've moved on from them, and I observed kind of from afar, or at the time in person, how they manage employees, and it was a real formative experience for me managing my own employees now, because I saw that the way you treat your employees can be a core advantage, competitive advantage for your site or your business. And you'll still have turnover. I mean, this industry, especially at the site level right now, is hot, but historically it's hot in between sites and CROs and sponsors. There's always a lot of turnover, a lot of promotion, a lot of recruiting. I told the interns that came in yesterday, the best type of job candidate from a recruiter standpoint is someone that's currently working somewhere else. So sometimes even if you treat your employees well, there's turnover, but when you are an employee, you may feel, okay, I have a lot of stress. Someone's basically in charge of my schedule. I have to ask for times off. They might deny it. I might not be able to go on this vacation with my family. Any vacation that we want to plan, or any events that we want to plan, I got to go to the doctor. I got to ask someone for it. And it may suck, because it's not natural to not feel in control of your own schedule and your own calendar of events. Now, if you're a salaried employee, I don't believe you need to necessarily ask, on the micro level, hey, can I come in at this time? It's more a matter of getting the work done. And currently my staff is on hourly, but I'm a fan of salaried employees, because I don't like to micromanage and dictate, you're supposed to do this during this time and make sure you clock out for lunch. Although you have no choice as an employer when you're on an hourly payroll structure. You have to have some kind of structure in your organization based on state laws and all that kind of stuff. Now, everyone thinks, okay, well, I can just start my own business, be in control of my own schedule. I would argue it's actually more stressful in any industry, but in research too. Working for yourself Because not only, like, when you're an employee, right, your family's depending on you. Like, yeah, your job may suck, you may not like your manager, but you know what, you gotta suck it up because you're doing this for the family, you're doing this for the kids, you're doing this for people that depend on you directly, right? When you are self-employed or a business owner, there is a difference. I'll explain it towards the end. When you are self-employed or a business owner, not only are people in your family and your immediate inner circle still depending on you, but now so are your employees. So are your business partners. In a weird way, your employees, your business partners become like your extended family. So now you can't, it sounds like you have freedom, and you do. You have a lot of autonomy. You're where the buck stops with you. But you can't necessarily do what you want. And you can't be reckless, because then everything falls apart. And not only is it your family and your inner circle that's depending on you, but it's your business partners, your employees. They need their paychecks, right? Like, if you have a payroll, if you're at a company and you have a payroll to meet, I've never missed a payroll as an employer in 20 years. Next year is going to be 20 years that I've been running sites. Never missed a payroll. Super proud of that. I've gotten really close. I've had to dip into my own savings many times. Think about that kind of stress for a second. As an employee, you never have to worry about that. If your employer doesn't pay you, there's insurance that will eventually kick in. You have the freedom to just move on, right? As a business owner, yeah, you have the freedom to let go of people. But in research, like, cash flow is very sporadic. It's well known that some sponsors and CROs don't pay for 90, 120, 160, 180 days or more, even though the contracts say 30 days. So you need that working capital somewhere. So it's very easy to dip into your savings. Okay, I'm just going to dip into it real quick, put it in here, pay myself back. Well, that perpetuates this cycle of constantly needing the next payment from the sponsor, because now you're behind. You got to pay yourself, and now your own family is like, hey, that's our savings. You dipped into our savings for your payroll. It's a totally different kind of stress. The grass is not always greener on the other side. Not to mention, you have business responsibilities to your customers, so to your patients. There were times in my, not Yuma clinical trials, we've been so fortunate, and probably it's because I'm so experienced at this point, I already knew what to expect. Many studies, you've got to pay the patients with cash, or it's got to come out of your site's bank account before you get reimbursed. So it's not just the employees, it's the patients. Like, hey, $100 a visit. It adds up if you're not properly optimized for cash and have the proper working capital. So it's so many different stakeholders. It's your own family, it's your employees, it's your vendors, it's your customers, it's your patients, it's your partners. It's a lot going on. Whereas with an employee, like when you're an employee, it's just you. So the stress is similar, if not greater, as an employer. The good news about it is, once you build up experience, once you understand, once you master the way the game works, and the game is the kind of business that you're in, the kind of business you have and the industry that you are in, you can get better at it, and you can create systems. And this is, if you stuck to the end, this is what it's about. There's a difference between a self-employed person and a business owner. The self-employed person, if the self-employed person leaves the company for 3 months, business falls apart, or there's just no revenue generated during that period of time. If a business owner leaves for 3 months, the business continues. Maybe even gets better. How does that work? The business owner builds systems that don't depend on him or her. One of the most important books I've ever read was called The E-Myth. The E-Myth, written by Michael Gerber. I think that's how you pronounce it. It talks about McDonald's and how everything from how to make the burgers to how to store the potatoes to how to order the ketchup, everything is a system that does not depend on one person. It's a system in place. So if somebody is not there, the system, you just plug in someone else and the system takes over. This is what your SOPs are supposed to do, but even better than the SOPs, because those are auditable, your manuals for your staff. Does a coordinator know what they need to do at a visit 1 for this study? Does a coordinator know what they need to do at a randomization for this study? Does an admin know how to pre-screen a patient? If somebody's out sick, you should have a system in place to where somebody else can come in and take over that task. And this is where I'm at right now with Yuma Clinical Trials. The business almost doesn't depend on me. It still does for a few core things. Business development's one of them. I'm trying to train some of my staff and build a system around biz dev and how to get studies, how to complete feasibilities, how to schedule site selection visits, how to handle the site selection visits. Contracts and budgets is done by Chris, which can be outsourced as well to someone else. Quality control, we have a whole system in place now with Katie and some of our better interns from the CRA Academy. Slowly, I'm removing myself from the picture because I've seen that the stress can be all-consuming. I've been in some really dark places as a business owner. Just rewind back to like 2012, probably my worst period of my life. And it was almost all of it had to do with the business and the business not working well. And then having partners that I didn't like. I mean, at that point, it was no different than being an employee and having the stress of being told what to do and the stress, the financial responsibility that I just mentioned in this video. If you don't build a system, like your goal as a business owner, number one, get it stable to where cash flow is not an issue and you can bear through the periods of time where your site's not going to get paid for 3 months, even more if you can, 6 months if you can. I think we have cash on hand right now at our site for even more than 6 months. But when we issue dividends to the owners, we keep at least 3 months of working capital in the bank account. So build a system to where if you need to go on vacation as the owner, or you, God forbid something happens to you and you need to be out for a month, that the business can still function without you. And this is what one of the things we try to teach our clients at DSCS, and one of the things we try to hone in on really on the Site Owner Academy is, yeah, it's cool to do this and work for yourself, but if you're trying to eliminate or reduce stress as much as possible, which I don't think it's ever completely eliminated, there's this school of thought, and I'm kind of with it, that you can never truly replace yourself, but you can replace yourself for most of the day-to-day obligations, which buys you a lot of freedom, right? You need to build these systems, or else you're just a self-employed person, and if that fails, you got to go back to being an employee, which at the end of the day, honestly, is not so bad. So if you're someone that's an employee and you're like, hey, you know what, I got to go out on my own, you got to understand what you're getting into. It's not less stressful. I think it's arguably more stressful. But focus on building the systems, and you got to get yourself out of the mentality of my time for money. Because no matter how fancy you get yourself as a self-employed person, it all boils down to time versus money. Even attorneys or doctors that are sole proprietors, that they are the commodity, they are the business, it boils down to hourly rate. It might be a very high hourly rate, but it's an hourly rate. But the lawyers or doctors or anyone else who builds systems and understands, hey, I got to create value that is independent of me, that's where you're truly getting into business. So hopefully this helps. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Site Owner Academy is revamped. It's coming back. Message me for info. Bye-bye.